Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. And for a programme that aims to bring you good news, this hasn't exactly been our week, but it has had its moments. For a start, the rail strike ended, and we all had to think up a new excuse for getting home late. And then more lads from the fleet came home. No doubt you saw the lady who welcomed her sailor husband home with a flash of underwear with Invincible blazoned on it. Actually, he was on Hermes, but she couldn't get those in the right colour. Then there was the news that anyone who wants a dream home really can buy land in faraway places. Mars, to be exact. There is just one catch. You have to plant a tree on your land in the next 20 years. But you never know, you might have Patrick Moore as a neighbour. But on to this week's show, we shall be having a look at how teachers and kids have been facing those dreaded end-of-term reports, how the new craze for mini cassette players means some people really are in another world. We reveal the plottings in the potting shed behind London's prize-winning veg shows, and the pitfalls of having your wedding videoed for posterity. That's all in about 15 minutes, but first it's over to Rita Carter for the day's regional news. Rita?
Thanks, Michael. Hello. In the news tonight, more allegations of corruption in London's police and calls for an investigation into claims that dying children have been turned away from hospitals.
We also report on why post office users are giving the thumbs up to scrapped collections and how Gill from the GLC became the top police dog.
The Home Secretary is to meet Liberal leader David Steel and Isle of Wight MP Stephen Ross next Thursday to discuss the latest allegations of police corruption in London. A list of 20 allegedly corrupt officers has been shown to some MPs. Mr. Steele has called for government action to end what he says seems to be a network of corruption, bringing the police service into disrepute. Here's David Bellin.
London's police forces must tonight be bracing themselves for another major investigation into corruption. With only 2 convictions to its credit, Operation Countryman is seen as a failure by Liberal and Tory MPs who are calling for an independent inquiry into the Metropolitan and City of London forces. Some also want an investigation by the Commons Select Committee on Home Affairs, although committee member Paddington MP John Wheeler considers it wrong to attack the whole of the Met while they're fighting terrorism. Mrs. Thatcher's also concerned that everyone is hitting out at the police. She may have brushed aside Liberal leader David Steele's question in the Commons last night, but it became clear today that Home Secretary William Whitelaw is taking the latest allegations of corruption seriously. He's to meet Mr. Steele and Isle of Wight Liberal Stephen Ross next Thursday. Mr. Ross is refusing to disclose his sources, which are bound to include temporary constituents at the island's Parkhurst prison. Mr. Ross says he's staggered by some of the stories, accusing around 20 officers up to Deputy Assistant Commissioner level of bribery, corruption and even organising crime. The list of names is under lock and key at the House of Commons, where it enjoys parliamentary privilege. Outside, its authors run the risks of libel. Scotland Yard have yet to see the list.
A school in Essex is to remain closed for another 2 terms because of concern over the safety of insulating foam. Pupils will be taught at a school nearby, but parents say they're unhappy.
Today, Essex County Council announced that this school, St Thomas More's at Southend, is to be closed for the next 2 terms. The school has already been shut for 3 months, while experts have been probing the cause of dizziness and nausea among the staff and pupils. It's been blamed on formaldehyde cavity wall insulation, also used in 400 other public buildings in Essex. The boys at the school are to be moved to an empty school building in the town. Are you worried that the children's education might be impaired by this move into temporary accommodation?
The accommodation itself that we're moving the children into is not temporary. It just means that they have to occupy it temporarily. The damage that their education might have suffered, if it has been suffered, I think has been suffered already, because the school has not been able to function properly as a unit now since we put the foam into the walls.
Tomorrow, parents will receive a letter telling them of the move. The letter merely says the school will be closed for 2 terms for further investigations. It doesn't promise that the foam will be removed. I showed the letter to parents today, and they weren't pleased.
Desperately sad to think that my boy's in the 4th year and he will never enter that school again.
Well, what about you, Mr. Roper? How do you feel?
I share Mr. Trainor's opinion. I also feel desperately sad. This is a monumental blunder that has gone on here, and it should not be lost sight of that we have had the pronouncements of these experts on 4 occasions, and on 4 occasions, as you see, the school remains closed.
Meanwhile, there are 1.2 million buildings in Britain with formaldehyde cavity wall insulation, and 400 of them are owned by Essex County Council. Simon Neve in Southend.
The Junior Health Minister, Mr Geoffrey Finsberg, today called for an urgent report into claims that 34 children, most of them dying, had been turned away from Guy's Hospital this year because of cash shortages. The claim was made by the hospital's Professor of Paediatrics, Dr Cyril Chandler. He says the children had been sent to Guy's from other hospitals, but were refused admission because the Children's Department was overspending by £12,000 a month. Mr Finsberg's announcement came as he was visiting the hospital to talk to striking health service workers and senior management.
Mr Finsberg's arrival took everyone by surprise. Abandoning his official car, the minister simply walked through the specially strengthened picket line without being noticed, let alone barracked. His meeting later with union leaders was described as polite but cool. Health service workers here are now at the end of their 4th week of selective strikes in support of their 12% pay claim and in protest at government cuts. Today's report that dying children have been turned away from Guy's because of a deficit on the nursing bill is symptomatic, they say, of the general malaise. Mr Finsberg has asked for a report into that matter, but on the pay front, he was adamant the government wouldn't budge over 7.5%. But wasn't this seeming lack of generosity out of keeping with the Prime Minister's praise this week for the way striking health workers had gone to the aid of victims from Tuesday's bomb outrages?
Not at all. Of course, I'm delighted to pay that tribute as well, and I'm glad to pay tribute to the workers, for example, at Guy's, who've been operating the TUC guidelines very well. But in fact, if you look at the average pay of a full-time male worker in the health service, it's £104 a week. Now, that in ordinary terms isn't bad, and for females it's £84 a week. We hear a lot of stories about £40 and £50. I'm giving the actual national average earnings, and that's a very impressive figure.
But the unions say that as long as there is still one worker earning less than £50 for a 40-hour week, then the strike will continue. And as of Monday, key staff who distribute and collect laundry around the wards will join the picket on the gates. Stephen Chambers at Guy's Hospital.
Scotland Yard have offered to process tourists' photographs in the hope of gaining vital clues to the London bombings. They'll develop, free of charge, pictures taken around Hyde Park and Regent's Park. The offer applies to the 24 hours leading up to Tuesday morning when the 2 bombs went off. Meanwhile, people around the Norfolk Broads have been asked to look for likely terrorist hideouts. A tape recording played at the recent trial of IRA bomber Gerard Chewett referred to bases in the Norfolk area.
The Post Office won support today for its controversial decision to scrap the 7 p.m. collections from post boxes outside central London. Even so, a campaign is growing to have the service reinstated.
In their annual report, the Post Office Users National Council supports the decision to scrap the late collections on practical grounds. They note that of the 12 million items posted weekly in the outer London districts concerned, only 400,000 first-class letters are affected, and that the annual saving will be £500,000. However, local businessmen are unhappy. The Percy Dalton Group in East London are one of the country's leading importers and processors of nuts. They find the new early posting times particularly inconvenient.
We have to communicate with a lot of insurance companies, shipping companies, banks, etc. And high rents in central London have forced these people out of central London into the outlying postal districts.
Isn't it possible, though, for you to make alternative arrangements?
It's very difficult, and it would be rather costly.
Many of Cecil Dalton's colleagues in the London Chamber of Commerce have protested about the cuts, and a campaign launched by the Mail Users Association has found support from London boroughs and local MPs. The Users Council, however, stick by their decision.
We don't like any loss of service, but in this particular case we thought that the loss of service was not outweighed by the cost of continuing it. But it's not, in our view, our responsibility to say you've got to maintain every single service which exists, regardless of what it costs the postal customers as a whole.
The announcement by the Post Office of record profits means that the Mail Users Association is even more determined to continue its campaign for the reintroduction of the 7 o'clock collection. Roger Parry with the Post Office.
Talks took place today on what to do with London's acres of derelict land. Representatives from 40 community groups and the London boroughs attended a seminar arranged by the GLC at County Hall. The aim was to find ways of bringing the derelict land back to life.
A few weeks ago, this was it. One of the worst fly tips in London, right alongside a primary school. Today, one of the many vacant sites owned by the GLC, they haven't a clue how many, it's being transformed. A perimeter fence is going up. Security men are on the prowl. And what's it going to be, this battered sixth of an acre?
Well, a city farm. I think city farms are pretty much a well-known idea nowadays. We'll have goats and chickens and rabbits and ducks and geese who'll be able to run around the whole of the area here. There'll be a couple of ponds, and we'll have an area in the centre here where local groups will have allotments.
Elm Farm Association, the community group responsible, have got their farming funds from the GLC, Wandsworth Council, the Job Creation Scheme, Marks and Spencer's and Abbey National. Their annual running costs will be £35,000. Meanwhile, the GLC are carrying out an aerial survey to find out just how many vacant sites like this there actually are in London. John Hinton in Battersea.
It looks like it's all systems go for an £85 million development of the Green Giant site at Vauxhall. This follows the failure of a group of peers to get the latest plan for the site halted in the Lords last night.
Shell filling stations in south-east Essex are running short of petrol because of a tanker drivers dispute. The drivers want a London waiting allowance of about £3 a week. And Scotland Yard have released a photograph taken during a £2,000 armed raid on Barclays Bank in Southgate in May. The man they want to interview is 6 foot tall, stockily built and aged between 35 and 40.
Another London borough wants to hand over its street cleaning operation to private enterprise. Croydon Council are pressing ahead with their plan despite union agreement on a reduction of 37 on the present workforce. Peers have protested in the House of Lords at the threatened closure of the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green, which houses the country's biggest collection of toys. The peers were promised that the Arts Minister will take local considerations into account before making a decision.
A German shepherd dog from Twickenham, who's won Britain's Police Dog of the Year award, put his skills on show today. But the dog isn't even employed by the police. He's a security dog used by the GLC to patrol the capital's parks.
Gil's no slouch when it comes to winning awards. He's got a list of them as long as your arm. And it's your arm he'll go for if you're a criminal. Mind you, if his handler decides you're an innocent member of the public, or if a child wanders between the criminal and the dog, he becomes completely harmless. Not yet 5 years old, Gil, who patrols the GLC parks in Twickenham, has pipped even the police dogs to the title Police Dog of the Year. And his owner received a trophy and a bottle of scotch for his part in this partnership. But nothing for Gil. Doesn't seem fair.
Well, he's already had it. This was, a few weeks ago he won the title. Big steak dinner. And I didn't shout at him when he jumped on my bed.
Today was something of a family affair. Gil had brought his son along. At 14 weeks, young Bruno's officially described as 28 pounds of fighting fury and planning to follow in Dad's footsteps. The rest of the display team were there too. Between them, they've caught umpteen thugs, from muggers to armed attackers. In their spare time, the dogs and their handlers put on displays for charity. But their serious work is to keep our parks safe.
That's King's famous step over leg leap.
Mind you, the latest recruit doesn't look too promising. Tricia Ingram's with the Police Dog of the Year.
Now the weekend weather, not a dog's life for us, I hope, Francis.
It could be better. We've been hounded all week by this cloud, quite pervasive now. I was reading on Monday in a newspaper, we're in for a heat wave. Did you read that? Well, let's have a look at today's first satellite sequence, and you'll see that the Mediterranean is in fact having a heat wave. Thunderstorms here, and that's us. We'll have a closer look now. The next satellite sequence shows the cloud around us. Remember, we're looking at a different wavelength now than the first image. That's why it looks so different. This is in the infrared. And if you pick out this stripe of clear in the North Sea, you can see which way this cloud is moving. It's low, thin stuff all over us, and it looks like more of the same for the weekend, doesn't it? So I think then the details for the weekend are just those. But on Saturday, I think rather more cloudy than Sunday. You see, Saturday we'll still have something of an easterly component in the wind, still that North Sea feeding in the moisture, giving the cloud and so on. Temperatures probably 68, 69. But on Sunday, I think the wind going round to northwest, good chance of that sun coming through, particularly in the afternoon, 70, 71 degrees. That's the weekend weather, Rita.
Thanks, Francis. And that's it from Colin and me, except for a story of a bomb scare with a happy ending. Ex-army man John Hale called the bomb disposal squad to his home in Rothsey Road, South Norwood today when he found what he thought was an unexploded bomb in his garden. Turned out to be a flower pot. Back to you, Mike.
That's one of our stories. Anyway, thank you, Rita, and everyone else. Come and join us one of these days. Janet, hello, you all right?
Yes, thank you.
There's a bit in the Telegraph here, the TV column, and it says about this programme, there is a complaint from one reader that the accents on this show are often so called blimey-ish, it is impossible to understand what is being said. They must be thinking of Shaw Taylor.
Yeah, I don't know who they're talking about. I just can't credence that. What a nasty person.
Yes.
I've been at elocution lessons every night this week. I'm at a jaw transplant in the summer, so when I come back, I'll sound like a Rhodian schoolgirl in the autumn.
I'd like to hear that. So the Daily Mail...
I'll wear a gym slit if you like, Michael.
Right.
No, I won't.
Daily Mail says this is an end of the week knees up, which is much nicer, really.
Yes.
Anyway, on we go. Now, today, as... As you may have noticed if you're a parent or a child, this is the last day of term for most schools in London. What that means is 6 lovely weeks stretching ahead, filled with the familiar cry of, I'm bored, I don't know what to do today, and the kids get fed up as well. But first comes the shock of the end-of-term reports, and Janet has been behind the closed doors of the staff room to find out who has the worst time. The teachers, who have to write the reports, the kids who provoke them, or the parents who have to decipher them.
Like most London schools, Fursdown Secondary in Tooting has been busy packing up this week for the end of the summer term.
Come on, Alison, you can be helping.
But though the pupils may be longing for the summer holidays to start, there's just one cloud on the horizon, and that's the end-of-term reports.
Right, I'm starting to give out the reports now.
The kids have been waiting anxiously to find out what's been said about them, and the staff have been sweating to produce over 18,000 meaningful remarks. And according to the teachers writing those reports, they all have their favourite comments.
I said about an amiable sort of rogue once, whose parents I knew well, I'm delighted to observe that he's getting worse more slowly.
Since getting his earphones or his headphones, these things that everybody's walking around in now, he's been lost to the world as we know it.
I wrote one once, he makes a better paper aeroplane than most in the class.
But there's more to writing reports than just thinking up sarcastic remarks. Teachers mustn't make mistakes, so the real art is finding a way of correcting a slip without crossing it out.
You want to write, he must wake up before it's too late. This is the last report before his examinations, and you suddenly realise you've written, he must make up. And you think, he must make up all his lost work during these holidays.
And it's not just mistakes that have to be avoided. In certain subject areas like PE, you have to be very careful about the words you use too.
Mainly the ball skills is the worst
Ball
one.
skills?
Ball skills, yeah.
So it's all right for girls to have it, but...
Yeah, when boys are lacking in ball skills, you can really get into trouble with parents because they really want to know what you're talking about. Yeah.
What teachers don't seem to realise is that some of those really mean remarks they can write on your report really linger on for a long time. I mean, I've got my report here, and it says Janet Ball, geography, good, but I still haven't forgotten what my science teacher said. Janet has not done her best owing to uncontrolled behaviour. But today, a lot of kids can see straight through those careful comments.
In fact, there's one word you look out for. It's conscientious. If you've got conscientious on your report, it means that the teacher hasn't got a clue who in the world you are. And if it's got something like works hard instead, then it just means they can't spell conscientious.
But in spite of this, some people still dread taking that report home, even though they seem to know just what their parents' reaction will be. Do you open it before you give it to your mum?
No.
So you've got to wait till she opens it?
Yeah. Sit there waiting for it with me.
And according to actor and former Eton schoolmaster John Wells, even at Britain's classiest schools, reports can be just as strange as anywhere else.
I said that some little aristocrat at Eton tended to behave like an unhinged baboon, and it was the only successful report I ever wrote.
because the parents thought, obviously, I'd hit the nail right on the head. But there was one master who'd unfortunately left before I got there, who was famous for writing very poetic reports, which used to upset the parents terribly, about saying, his eyes are like twin pools of purple mystery. And what the parents could have thought when they read those, I don't know.
Now, we've been joined in the studio by a man who knows a lot about teachers. He used to be one. That was before he became a wrestler. And as an actor, one of his most memorable roles was the gritty PE teacher in the film Craze, the brutal Brian Glover. Brian, what about your own reports? Do you remember those?
Oh, I remember them well. My great problem at our house was that my dad could never quite grasp what the teacher meant. One teacher actually put opposite the gardening thing, digs well. My old man thought I could dig well, but I was on the bad boys well-digging squad because the school had a well. And then there was another occasion when it said, third king in the school nativity play. And my old man said, why aren't you the first king? I said, all the kings are equal, Dad. He said, not first, second, and you were third. But then I eventually got to a grammar school, and we got this silly French master who insisted in writing the comments in French. And I see my dad looking down it now. He said, French. And he said, what's this, French? I says, very good. He said, it looks so very good here. It says, tres bien or something. And then we got this really smart history teacher who actually makes little effort since he apparently agrees with Henry Ford. So the old man says, what's that all about? I says, history is bunk. He says, it'll continue to be bunk, young man, as long as you keep chatting to this lad Ford. They shouldn't let you sit together.
I loved it. Do you know, my son's just... I've seen his report, and talk about things needing deciphering. I mean, it clearly says here, an excellent animation baked apple, an equally quack Tom's wart.
Sounds like a doctor's
That's what it says.
Mine's full of things like over-boisterous, needs improvement, disappointing. Oh, Janet totally lacks concentration and any self-control. But I think you wrote that, Michael,
What year is that, Janet? What year is that report?
Well, I deteriorate. I got my primary school ones. They're wonderful. Oral English, very good.
Yeah.
Prize given. And then that was like 8 years old. And then the rot set in by 13.
One of the things I learned...
Because you wrote a lot of things.
Yes, I mean, when you eventually do become a schoolmaster, you've got to be very careful what you actually say. One of the first jobs I ever had a boy who announced me one Monday morning that he'd forgotten how to read. I said, you can read Friday. He said, went over the weekend, said, I can't read a word. So I put on his school report, makes little progress. Apparently now he's forgotten how to read. Next morning, the headmaster was in. He says, Mr. Glover, I must insist you must not put provocative remarks upon the reports of children who have parents who are comers-up. I've just had Mrs. Naylor in here like a bat out of hell, and she's broken my spectacles. Her son can read perfectly well.
Do you know, the last report of comment I remember on one of my school reports, the form master said, possesses a certain maturity. Whether this is a superficial maturity or indeed a mature superficiality is yet to be revealed, and we've never found out.
We did cooking at our school. The boys did cooking.
Housecraft, what's it called?
Well, the girls, this particular term, the girls did woodwork and we did cookery. And it said on my report, Mrs. Beaton, there's nothing to fear.
Oh, how lovely. Then he became a wrestler. It's interesting, life. Anyway, now it's time to hear from a housegoer in a helicopter. Now, you remember, we didn't make contact last week, and I had to read the traffic news, and someone from the AA rang afterwards to say it was the best report that Fred had ever done. Anyway, Fred, you're hearing us now. Everything all right?
Yes, I was thinking of becoming a Trappist monk last week and nearly succeeded. I got gelded on the way home, but that's another story. We've been looking for a traffic jam. Believe it or not, short of setting ourselves down in the middle of the M1, we'd have had to cause our own. But anyway, we're in south-east London, out towards Shooters Hill and Blackheath, and the traffic's building up a bit slowly down here. The A4 Hammersmith flyover, there's an accident westbound and on the Great West Road between Hogarth and Chiswick roundabout, causing problems for the traffic going out that way. A13 Ripple Road eastbound, there's been an accident there, a broken down lorry, I understand, and that's causing problems eastbound. The A2 eastbound Shooters Hill Road and roundabout we're looking at the moment, it's not as bad as it was originally, but it's still pretty slow. And generally speaking, the areas around the South Coast dock areas, Dover and so on, the approaches are building up because the kids are out of school. And finally, the M1's got a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. What a joke. If you can get past 10, you've had a result. Junction 5, it's tailed back 2 miles, so if you're on the M1, unlucky. If you're not, laugh at those who are. And I think we can see you later on, Mike, in about another 20 minutes. OK, over to you.
I'll be loud and clear, Fred. Good to know you're in good voice again. And I spotted 1 or 2 schools there as well. In a moment, we shall be finding out why Londoners seem to be sprouting earmuffs. But first, the break. Hello again. While you were watching the ads, Janet and Brian Glover were having a bout of arm wrestling, and Janet won, and she's apologised. She damaged his little perforations, you see. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but all over London, people seem to be wearing earmuffs. On closer inspection, they turn out to be attached to mini cassette players, and these are the work of those devilish cunning chaps in the Far East, and they're called Walkmans. At the push of a button, they transport you to a world of your own. And Danny Baker reports.
If you've passed people that seem to be in another world wearing a gadget that looks like a cross between a tiara and some earmuffs, then you've had a close encounter with the Walkman world. Take this fella, hardly a beat crazy teenager, he's a barrister, and now the company limo has been pensioned off as he cycles to work, lost in the growing world of mini music. There's no doubt about it, the Walkman way of life gives travel a whole new dimension. And it's not just music that the headphone sets switch on to.
I listen to plays because you can record a play while you're watching television and then listen to a radio play while you'd be cycling along doing nothing else.
The Walkman revolution has gone so far it's even come inside the home. In this turned-on household, breakfast sounds go beyond mere snack, crackle and pop. But the real effect of the Walkman revolution is that people aren't just using them for entertainment. They come in very handy when you're studying, and this bloke's even come up with a way of making money from the craze.
I record some textbooks for people, which they carry around on their Walkmans, so it's given me an idea for making money, which can't be so bad.
John Walter's Saturday afternoon radio show is pre-recorded so he can get along to support his football team. With his Walkman, John can keep an ear-roll out for any on-air disasters that might crop up while he's at the match.
And I'm sort of putting these on like that at half-time to listen to myself, get a good signal looking that way from these aerial things. Game goes down the other way and I don't want to lose myself. So I'm stuck there like that bloke in the cigar advertisement when they're all looking like that at Wimbledon. He's got his neck brace and stuck one way around like that. Everybody looks at me and they all think I've got some sort of slipped disc or something like that.
But once you're a Walkman wearer, there's just no escaping the funny looks, no matter how famous you are.
I think a lot of people, the first time they see you wearing them, wonder if you've been struck with some terrible ear affliction.
Yes, all the best-dressed people in town are tuning in, and in Greek student Barbara's case, the best undressed people too.
Τι κάνετε? Καλά, καλά, και εσείς? Καλά, και εσείς? Σας ενόλο. Σας ενόλο.
But what happens when Walter and Walkman meet?
Well, I've never had a shock in this bath, at least not from the Walkman.
And what about the hazards on the road? Should you be wary of a driver wearing a Walkman at the wheel?
Not really, because in fact, you still hear quite a lot around it.
Since you can hear what's happening outside, it's no more dangerous driving a car wearing the earphones than listening to a stereo.
Well, once the eyes is open, right, I don't think it's too that dangerous, really.
Wish I could do that. Anyway, we did spot the wire trailing in the bath. It's not connected to the main, so it is safe, but not generally to be recommended. Now we've been joined by Danny Baker, who is a Walkman owner himself, so you are one of them.
I am one of them, yeah, but I'm happy to say I kicked the habit, because they can be habit-forming. You tend to put them on like with your watch and bung your change in your pocket, and I think you have to like have a skin operation to get them off your neck again at some time. But what really gets up my hooter is when they wear them as an accessory around their neck. You know, like them Burks wear sunglasses on the top of their head. Well, they wear these around their neck. And
Danny, I've got the new thing.
Ah!
No problem here. You don't have to listen to music. You just put them on at the same time and look at twerk.
Yes, we've all got them. Yeah.
This way, you wear them and just look at twerk.
You leave your dignity outside the door with the milk
I can't hear
bottles.
any music coming down through my red balls.
Yeah.
One I'm sorry for is Brian. Isn't that hurt?
Yes, they've got tiny little teeth in them to hold them on. They're playing havoc with my bald head.
If I might just say, the rugged chap next to me is the person who brought these in, you know what I mean? Don't be full.
But you're very vulnerable if you're wearing these things. I mean, in New York, people are getting mugged and all that.
For the Walkmans, yeah, there was a shortage, and they took over from cash and credit cards as being the #1, you know, don't worry about your watch, don't give us your Walkman, it was. But the thing is, there's a great revenge, because, of course, they cut off the world, and you can, if you know someone who's wearing them, you can say what you like them. You know, as long as you keep smiling, you can say, you know what you look like wearing that, and they go, yeah. You know, and you say, you never bought a drink, have you? Last time you got one in, like, Regent's Park.
It's when they sing, when they're listening to it, they go, terrible noise.
But you don't always know when people are wearing them, because one of our grand actresses actually wears one on stage occasionally, especially when the test match is on, because she likes to listen to the cricket. She was playing the nurse at Stratford, Romeo and Juliet, and there's Juliet crying on her lap, and she said, 308 for 6, that might put you on.
What, she had it under her wig?
She has it under the wig, so you can't see it.
Yeah. I can't stand it when I get on the train to Leeds. Well, I can't stand it when I get on the train to Leeds and I'm surrounded by pinstripe businessmen and they've all got their Sony Walkmans on, listening to classical music or rock or whatever, and they've also got those little dictaphone things, so it's like completely being surrounded by Daleks, because they're dictating letters and nodding their heads at the same time. Oh, I better stop
well,
it with it.
There was a well-known actor who needed to get some prompts coming through from the control room, from the prompt off stage, and it got mixed up the local taxi service, and he got people ringing up for a taxi when he was on stage. Very embarrassing. Anyway, if you have green fingers, well, congratulations, because they must be worn to the bone now, because the beans ready and the tomatoes are ripening. This is the start of gardeners' showtime, and nowhere is the spirit of competition more intense than on London's cherished Allotment. Now, I've heard of fertilisers and mulch and compost, but apparently the experts find a use for tubes of glue and bottles of cochineal, corkscrews and baby talc, as Janet will explain.
Downtown Lambeth is the last place you'd expect to find a country show. But the flower and vegetable competition in Brockwell Park in Brixton this weekend has got allotment gardeners all over South London digging for victory. While the spuds get a wash and scrub up, there's nothing like a paintbrush for titivating your roses. And if it rains, well, not to worry, a hat will take care of that. Everything's got to look perfect. But to get that extra winning edge, some gardeners aren't above a bit of plotting in the potting sheds. It's amazing what boot polish can do for a carrot with a hole in it, as Lambeth vegetable judge Barbara West-Kelsey knows.
The theory is that with a piece of boot polish more or less the same colour, you can plug the hole so that the hole doesn't show anymore.
True, some desperate characters try gluing the green bits back on tomatoes. Sadly, it rarely works. But gardeners have better tricks to keep the judges on their toes. Competitor Edgar Lee knows a few.
There is a small wormhole here. It looks possibly as though it's wireworm, which the judge will most certainly spot. But you can hide it, if you're lucky, with a little bit of plasticine, which I'm putting in there with my fingers, smooth it down well, and with a lot of luck, I'll get away with it.
Getting your flowers to stand up straight for the judges is easy, provided you've got a handy bit of wire.
In order to get the stem to be stiff...
Well, this is if you're exhibiting dahlias and they're a bit droopy.
That's right, and they're a bit droopy. It is possible to sift the stem by just putting a wire very carefully right up through it.
But flowers can be tricky customers, even if you're growing marrows. Prize marrows must have that little dried flower on the end, even if you have to cheat.
It often is done that this flower is stuck on with Copydex or an adhesive like that, so that it doesn't show.
You've never done that, have you?
Yes, I have. I must admit this is one of the things that I have done.
Did you get caught?
No.
Beetroots are different. You can polish them, but judges always cut them open, and if they've got white rings inside, you can forget it, at least according to Mr. Lee. So even though you can make the outside look better, you can't fiddle around with the inside.
You can't fiddle around with that inside.
But unknown to Mr. Lee, some gardeners do possess the closely guarded secret of fixing a beetroot. Mr. John Delamere, Secretary of the Lambeth Horticultural Society, allowed us to film this extraordinary process for the very first time. First, you take a needle and thread and stick it up through the neck of the beetroot. Then you drop the thread into some red dye which soaks right up inside the beetroot. So you're making it a nice red colour.
That's right. Now it's going to be a beautiful dark purpley red.
And you won't see those nasty white rings.
And you won't see the nasty white rings because they'll be much darker in colour.
Only the fanatics will go to those lengths. Most gardeners will be satisfied with a rub of butter on their carrots or a shake of talcum powder on their onions. The vegetable judges should know all these ruses, but they really will have to know their onions to spot this little trick. They'll be giving prizes to onions with thin necks, but if you've got a fat-necked onion, don't despair. You can slim it down by pulling a fast one with a corkscrew.
Amazing revelations there. Extraordinary. It looks quite cruel, some of it. You're a very keen gardener, aren't you,
Yeah, as I'm such a keen gardener, I brought some of my own produce, and I'd like you to have a look at one of my potatoes. Sorry,
Thank you.
Mike, there's one for you, Danny.
It's got a bit bruised.
I've got a very nice tomato there.
I've noticed that. Is this, is this a special? What kind of potato is that? It looks
That's
very
an
ordinary.
Ulster sector, but I haven't filled it in with plasticine. And before you take a bite out of my tomato, Brian, I should point out my dad told me to feed it on Epsom salts, so you could have very...
Epsom salt.
Is this from your Yorkshire
strange
estate?
results.
This from your estate in Yorkshire?
Well, it's from my 3 rows of potatoes. But wasn't it amazing what they said about all those tricky little things?
I once knew an old Geordie, and they grow rather big leeks up, and it's a speciality of the North East. And he said, there's only one way to... Why, I man, there's only one way to grow a championship leek. Get plenty of Newcastle brown ale down you, and then get up that allotment and give them a good watering.
None of that goes on in my garden, I can assure you.
I hope not.
I just water them with Epsom salts, and then I have 9 million slug deterrents, none of which work. And last Sunday I planted 9 lettuces. I mean, I'm never going to get round to Otley Show or any of these agricultural shows. I planted 9 lettuces and the birds pulled 6 out straight away.
I just realised when I was watching that, I mean, when I was little, up the end of our estate, there was a dump, and we used to climb over a fence, and we used to dig around, used to get potatoes, and used to get carrots and all this. I said, go home. I said to my mum, look, she said, where'd you get them? And I said, they're growing wild. It's just, the pennies just dropped. There was probably some bloke breaking his back up there 3 nights a week and said to his wife, I'll never get anything out of this. We're helping ourselves.
But they're very popular in the north, more than the south, aren't they? Allotments.
Yes, most of the allotments in the north of England have actually deteriorated now into being pigeon lofts. But you see signs saying, no pigeon lofts must be erected upon these allotments, but they're always there. And I once knew a guy who actually used to breed ferrets on his allotment. And I went in to look at all these ferrets, and right in the middle of this shed was a complete double bed, all made up in nasty pink frills. And I says, what's this for? He says, well, you never know what you look like. I said, well, you don't get much luck with all this lot going on around. He said, why, aye, man, ferrets is an aphrodisiac. Turns them on.
There's a pal of mine who used to go out every spring, overnight, when neighbours had gone to bed, and plant hundreds of plastic flowers in the garden. And they used to come out and he couldn't believe it, you know. And he just used to wash them every now and then. It was a wonderful idea.
I've been in none of that since that film Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Well, Danny, I wasn't going to tell you anything with this tomato. It's got to...
You're not a prize winner, though, Janet, because that doesn't... You know, it's a nice object.
Look, Michael, I have just dug this out of the garden. I haven't even put any talcum powder or polished it yet. It's got a bit of glitter of my little red balls on it, but...
But very nice.
I think it'll be all right.
That's
I mean,
enough
it's
about
not
the
bad.
vegetables.
I've only been growing them for 3 years. I don't know any tricks.
Now, we're going to find out whether Fred is still in contact with us, because it's time to find out what is going on. He's probably been looking down on a few gardens. Are you hearing us, Fred?
Thanks, OK, good.
Yes? Go ahead.
Oh, right, thank you very much. And you made a long-distance phone call then. We're looking at the M1, and the reason for that is at the weekend, between Junction 6 and Junction 5, from 8 p.m. tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and Saturday night, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. Sunday morning, That's going to be closed southbound. And believe it or not, it's the school holidays and all the rats will be running out, I know, because I've got 2 of my own. And that's going to mean that the holidays have really started with a bang. That will mean heavy coastal traffic on the roads, the A2, the M2, the A11, the A12, etc. from tonight onwards. Also, of course, the holiday routes to the west and the southwest, so the caravans will be rolling and overtaking is a thing of the past. Also, of course, there's an Army air display at Middle Wallop. This will add to congestion on the A303 and the A30, A343. And finally for tonight, Graham, our intrepid aviator, is leaving. He's had enough of me, so we can hide the methylated spirits once more, sell off the Labrador, the White Stick, and I'll lose that forever pleasure of watching him flicking through the pages of How to Fly a Helicopter for Beginners. Believe it or not, he's wearing a suit marked 1949. That's the sort of guy I'm flying with. But it's goodbye to Graham. He's going to become a test pilot. Goodbye to us. We can't find any traffic for you, but you're going to find some over the weekend now that the schools are out. Thank you, Michael. See you again sometime.
Thank you, Fred, very much. Looks like a shot of Northumberland there. Very pretty indeed. In a moment, we'll be looking at the new fashion of having your wedding videoed so that you can relive those magic moments over and over again, and why you shouldn't. But first, a break. Janet! Welcome back, and here are some short bits. Janet.
The story of the man in the Queen's bedroom has really featured heavily in the American press this week. First prize must go to the New York Post, who ran the headline, "Intruder told Queen, I love you," and printed a photo of Princess Margaret next to it.
Now, we may think that our government are cutting costs, but they've got nothing on Iran, because one of the Ayatollahs there has just announced that in future, drug smugglers will be hanged to save money on bullets.
Police stopped a woman riding a bicycle in Ramsgate this week because she was cycling erratically. They found she had a 7-foot python wrapped round her. Well, maybe it was chilly that day.
Talking of pets, the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Streatham has got a special lunchtime deal this week. 2 pieces of chicken and chips for 95p. But if you want 2 pieces of chicken without chips, it'll cost you 13p extra. I suppose if you don't want the 2 pieces of chicken either, it'll cost you £1.
Go on like that and you get on Mastermind. Viewer Avril Saunders of Kingston was browsing through a mail-order shopping catalogue when she came across a rather unexpected offer. Set of 4 bowls, ladies size 3, £61.95. And for the same price, 4 more bowls, men's size 5. So should any ladies watching think they're lacking something, this is obviously the catalogue for you.
I'll have 2 number 4s, thanks very much.
Well, Michael.
Amazing though it may seem, it is very nearly a year since the royal wedding. Like countless other couples, Charles and Di probably chose July, hoping it wouldn't pour with rain. And we all know why that is so important, for the ritual of the wedding photos. It's a known fact that you're not really married until you've had your picture taken outside the church with your relatives to prove that you went through it. But, or through with it. But in these days of high technology, wedding photographs are fast being overtaken by a new fad, wedding videos. There is just one problem. Some moments on the big day might be best forgotten. Unlike the smooth organisation of the royal occasion, as Danny Baker has been finding out.
It's hard to believe it was all a year ago. The bride, radiant and calm, apart from that one slip over the bridegroom's name. And he, handsome and debonair in his naval uniform, nearly endowing himself with all his own worldly goods. But on the whole, from the grand entrance at St Paul's to the champagne reception at the palace, it all went like a dream. And ever since, the real addicts have been able to watch it over and over again on the video. But it isn't just the rich and famous who can have a video of their wedding these days. Now every bride can be a film star, and having the big day recorded is becoming as natural a part of the wedding as choosing the dress. But weddings can be embarrassing occasions, and it has to be said that not everyone's goes quite as smoothly as Charles and Di's did.
I'll just take that one next. Hang on to that for a second.
Brendan and Deborah Garn might even prefer to forget some of the less than magic moments at their wedding. But no chance, because the beady eye of the camera captured every slip-up for posterity. Right from the moment the blushing bride arrived at the altar and her veil fell off. She had to pick it up herself too. Hubby-to-be chose to ignore the whole thing.
Didn't know whether to just get down and pick it up myself. And I thought, no, that ain't the thing you're supposed to do, is it?
And if that wasn't bad enough, then the vicar tried to marry Debbie with the wrong hand. Mind you, she did try and tell him. Then for the pièce de résistance, poor Debbie couldn't get the ring on.
When I was giggling, he kept saying to me, "Shut up," didn't you? He said, "Shut up." You
Oh, he was
know?
giggling all the while, was it?
Yeah, yeah, and he looked really sort of serious, and I said to him, "Smile."
To Bernie and Bill Cullen, who filmed the wedding, none of this was a surprise. Though it's usually at the reception, when everyone's had a few drinks, that the fun really starts. Especially at Greek weddings, where the guests pin £5 or £10 notes on the bride and groom as presents.
While we've got the camera switched on and we're videoing, you know, the money pinning on, the guests will look at the camera and think, you know, if they're going to be on film, they'll put £10 on rather than £5, because when the bride and groom play the tape back at the end of the day, they can see who their friends are.
Certainly not every bride behaves as regally as Princess Di did. When Vic and Sue Woodard were married, they and their guests were determined to enjoy themselves. But of course, whatever happened at Charles and Di's reception was left discreetly unfilmed. So if there were any skeletons in the royal drinks cupboard, we're never going to find out about them. But I somehow doubt that any of their guests rivalled the floor show Debbie and her mum put on. And I'm sure this is one way the blushing royal bride definitely didn't end up.
Oh, they all lived happily ever after. Wasn't that smashing?
Wasn't it a lovely item, that? And the thing is that they'd never seen them before, so they've seen them for the first time. But watching them do that conga line, it reminds me like the most embarrassing moment I think I've ever seen in my life. I was only about 10, and my Uncle Elf, who's a good dancer, he was leading a conga line 200 strong, and he's going around here all giving it plenty of this, and he thought a great idea would be to take it out on the main road. And he did a left, and no one followed him. And he must have got outside, and it dawned on him. I saw him creep back in about 2 minutes later and join on the end light and just shuffle around the rest of the hall.
There's always an Uncle Alf, isn't there, at a wedding?
Yeah.
Or in my case...
My first wedding, my husband's granny, it was at a restaurant in the West End, and my husband's granny was a very nice little old lady, and it was an Italian restaurant and the waiters were in full swing, and they suddenly realised that Granny had been gone for about an hour, and she'd locked herself in a men's cubicle in the men's loo, and had been banging on the door and been unable to get out. It was terribly embarrassing for her.
Well, my Uncle Arthur, he gets drunk quite a lot, whether it was a wedding or whatever, and he always says, at the end of the evening, yes, he says, I've got to walk to Brighton. But he lives in Wandsworth, he's never been able to... What about up north? There must be wonderful do's there.
I once went to a wedding, at cousins actually, where the bridegroom was considerably shorter than the bride. So the photographer had the bright idea, getting a couple of house bricks, to standing on it and covering the house bricks with the bride's gown. Anyway, the photographs came out and the wind must have been blowing, because there was this cousin of mine standing on 2 house bricks for all the world to see. And that was the official photograph.
How very embarrassing. I suppose in years to come people will film their divorces, won't they? That's the way things go. Yes. Anyway, you may have wondered, you know, you were saying that people hadn't seen those recordings before, and we're about to confirm that, because we've got the stars of those videos here. And incidentally, as I'm walking across here, I'll tell you today is my wedding anniversary. Just remembered. Anyway, familiar faces. Now, we've got, first of all, there's Debbie and Brendan here. What do you think? You hadn't seen that before. No. What do you think?
I thought it was pretty good, well put together.
But had you, you weren't aware half those things were going wrong, were you?
No, you didn't realise until afterwards.
What about the honeymoon?
At the time.
Was that as chaotic?
Well, we only had about 3 days of sun, the rest was rain.
Oh, you noticed that, did you? Yeah, well, that's good, isn't it? Yeah. What do you think of these videos? I mean, are they better than having photographs, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's in moving colour, that's something. And here's the other couple, now, Sue and Vic. Are you deeply ashamed of yourself after that? What did you think, really?
Oh, it's very good, yeah.
Just what you... Have you ever seen yourself before in action like that?
No, never.
Lovely. Actually, you're still on honeymoon, aren't you?
Yes.
So when was the wedding, actually?
10th of July.
Yeah. And whose mother is who's with us here today?
Vix.
This is your mum here. What did you think of all that?
It was lovely.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping to see the whole film next week.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's more, is there? Oh, can you come back next week? We must see that. What did you think of the idea of it? I mean, the expense of it. What does it cost, actually, to do that film?
I've no idea. We've got it as a present.
Oh, I see. It's embarrassing to ask. Did somebody pay for yours? So we don't know. I wonder how much it must be. A few hundred quid, though, mustn't it? So it's a bit more than having a picture taken, isn't it? But you all think it's a very good idea.
That's great. We'll tell you when we've seen it. Very good.
Yeah. Well, if there's any better bits of that, will you bring them back to us next week? Anybody else had their video done for their weddings? So a brand new idea, isn't it? Obviously, it's going to work. You have. You married? Oh, she's only 12 years old. Anyway, good luck to you, and I hope the rest of your honeymoon is slightly less eventful than that. Or depends what you want, doesn't it, really? Anyway, if your wedding day was less than perfect, and there's always something hilarious to tell, why not share that memory with us? We're very broad-minded here. Drop us a line about what went wrong or who forgot to turn up, and address it to Wedding Tales, the 6 o'clock show, London Weekend Television, London SE 99 6YN. So look forward to hearing from you, and that's it for this week. Thanks very much to Janet and to Brian and to Danny. Good luck. And if you are stuck for something to do over the weekend, why not get married? Whatever you do, enjoy yourselves. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.